What's going on, Wolfpack Nation? We have a special episode of Tuffy Talk coming right at you here, as we are lucky enough to be joined by somebody that has absolutely grabbed the hearts of all NC State fans over last week, and that is our fan, our friend, Danny Kanell, who's better known in another way, which we'll be talking about here soon. But in the way that I'm talking about, he is a analyst with CBS Sports, and famously picked NC State by doing the unzip and the reveal of, I think it was the 74 or the 83 championship.
Both. It had 74. Both. I think it had both on there. Yeah.
Okay.
I think it might have had both on there, giving them both a little love.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so Danny, let's just start off there. So, I mean, you know, we'll kind of talk about the other side here first, but I mean, what is it about it that really made you want to go out there and you know, put your name out there saying, I'm going to pick NC State to win the national championship?
2 words. Ben Middlebrooks, or I'll take it a step further. I'll take it another 2 words, Uncle Danny. So I'm the youngest in a family. I have 3 older sisters, and so they were all married, you know, and had children before I was married and had my own kids. And I was pretty young. I think my oldest sister is 11 or 12 years older than me, and she had her, and then Daryl, Ben's mom. They all had kids like way before I was even thinking about being a dad. So I really embraced the role of Uncle Danny a lot when I was, I was in my 20s. And so, I've always been kind of Uncle Danny within the family to all my, nieces and nephews, because I got a slew of them. But yeah, I would love to say that I, had really broken down a lot of film, or that I really felt Kevin Keats was, had something up his sleeve. But that was a total homer, family first play that I was rooting for Ben. But I have, I've watched a lot of the games this year. I mean, how do you say with a 4-game losing streak, you're like, eesh. And I mean, I'm sure you guys talked a lot about Kevin Keats and his job security was on the line, but so it was definitely a homer pick. It wasn't something that I saw anything happen, but I do think there is something to be said for playing with your backs against the wall. And I think the team knew what was at stake. Obviously, if they lose, they go home. Their season is over. I think they probably had heard some of the rumblings about Keats' future. So all of a sudden, there's incredible value in that. So you play with your backs against the wall. Then you win a couple games. And then all of a sudden, like, you start to believe and you start to play with confidence. And that's where they're playing now. And, one of my favorite parts of this team is how unselfish they are. There's been different players have stepped up at various points in this, 7-game run, 7 games in 12 days. And you never see anybody. I've been on teams where, sometimes there's a guy's mad that didn't get his 20 and 10, or there's somebody upset that didn't get the ball enough, they didn't get enough minutes. I have never seen anything but a team playing together that celebrates each other's success. And I think that's when special things can happen. And I think that's where we are sitting in the Sweet 16.
Well, and obviously, yes, you basically alluded at, Danny, that you are the uncle to center Ben Middlebrooks within NC State. But it was funny. So I am actually attend a church in Chapel Hill where the pastor and a lot of people there are UNC fans. And it literally shocked me yesterday during our pastor's sermon, where he literally talked about how, like, he was like making the point about how, you take these pieces and you put them together and they're way stronger than any of them individually added all together could do individually. Like, just basically making the point that a team that comes together is strong. And because I think that for me, I think it was the 2018 Duke team, or with Zion Williamson, RJ Barrett, all those guys. Like, if that team couldn't win a national championship, there's no way that a bunch of one and dones, a bunch of individual talents can win a title. They just can't do it. And he even made the point, being like, see, but if you take NC State, for example, this year, and it took me back. I'm like, wow, this guy who is a fan of UNC is about to use NC State as like a thumbs up thing. And yeah, I mean, like, he was basically saying like the fact that they're all just working together beautifully. They all have their roles. They all know what they're trying to do. And at the end of the day, they don't care how it gets done. As long as the W is up there on the board, that's all that matters. And so I wanted to kind of ask you, because I think it kind of goes to that point, but Ben Middlebrooks, obviously versus Texas Tech in the opening round, scored 21 points, was just on fire. 75% from the field, 90% from free throws. But then versus Oakland, 0 for 4 from the field, 2 points, but 8 rebounds. So, I mean, he still was, efficient in a way. So, kind of talk to me, first of all, about, what really stood out to you about, Ben's play. And do you think that kind of is the perfect example of that? At the end of the day, Ben's really into it in one game, not so much in another, but at the end of the day, 2 W's.
Yeah, and so the Texas Tex game was the best game I've ever seen him play, at any level. I mean, he kind of – and I think, with a young player like that, I mean, he's still – I know he had the 2 years at Clemson. I know he's a junior, but he's still he's never been a go-to guy wherever he's been. And we'll see if he gets that at NC State next year. And he's always known his role and contributed as such. But that, to me, whether watching him at Clemson – whether watching him this year at NC State, I mean, clearly I think that was his best game. And you could not have picked a better stage to be on. CBS on national television in the first round of the NCAA tournament was awesome. So our whole family was going nuts. But here's my favorite part about Ben, and I would say this would go for any player on this team. So after the game, we went back to the hotel, the Oakland game. Okay. And so we go back there, and I go up to Ben, and I was like, because I am not Mr. blame the officials guy. I hate it when fans do that.
Yeah.
But I found myself yelling at the officials in that game more than ever.
One of us.
And Ben, of course, fouls out in the game. So the first thing I said to Ben, I dapped him up and said, congratulations. I was like, that was awesome. And I said, man, those officials sucked. I'm like, they screwed you over. And he had a big smile on his face. And he's like, it's all good because we won. He's like, I don't care. He's like, because we won. And, that's really the mentality that I think Ben or anybody else on this team would have about a call that doesn't go their way, about a night that doesn't go their way. They just want to win and extend this unbelievable run that they've been on. And I think that type of mentality really permeates the entire team.
Yeah, and so I'm just thinking, too, that, they've got a really big matchup here at Marquette. First off, you going to be there in Dallas, or what you got planned?
So I'll tell you this. I was really nervous in Oakland because I didn't want to be the jinx. And I even saw some NC State fans being like, no, don't hop on this bandwagon, and I am superstitious. I don't like to be that. So at least I've got a W under my belt. So I brought my 2 younger daughters to the game in Pittsburgh against Oakland.
Yeah.
My older daughter, the reason she couldn't go is because she plays volleyball. She's highly competitive in volleyball. She has a massive tournament in Chicago. Okay. That is Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So the plan, I was looking at flights. I'm like, should I leave her there? But she'd be alone in the hotel. My plan is if they win to try to get there Sunday. But I'm dying because I'd love to be there for both. I mean, it's easy, especially when it's Friday, Sunday. You could see 2 games as opposed to 1 if they do win. But my daughter would probably shoot me. She was already upset. She didn't get to go to the game.
You got to be dad.
Exactly. And I think, if the timing works out, if I could bring her and then she'd be the only daughter that hadn't been.
Super dad at that point.
Exactly. Then we could be flying all over to go watch. So I'm trying to get there, fingers crossed, and let's see if they can keep it going. Because they're a 6.5 point underdog right now, which is just where I like it. That's just where I like it. I mean,
so I think, have you looked forward at all of the Marquette matchup? I don't know how much you look into those kinds of things, but just curious what your thoughts are about that game.
A little bit. So I work on Sirius XM radio, and all week we've had Chris Spatola, who was an ESPN analyst, on, and he was talking about some of the matchups and Tyler Kolek, how tough he can be on the middle. I think the thing that separated NC State on this run, which gives them a chance versus anybody, yes, it's the team aspect on the offensive side of the ball, but watching the defense, I think that's what
I agree.
That's what I think this run has all been about, is the intensity they play with on defense. The amount, I heard one of the games saying how much they full court press more than I think most teams in the country, and definitely in the tournament. There's an intensity and the depth which way they can go to, and he was saying that, Spatola said, and you guys know this more than anybody, Mo Diarra on the boards has been such a beast. And I think he is somebody that is really hard to account for. But when you've got the size with DJ Burns, with Mo Diarra, and then Ben coming in to kind of give him relief, those are 3 big bodies that I don't care how deep your roster is, it is tough to match up. And then the guard play has been great too. But I do worry about Tyler Kolek. He's pretty he's pretty electric. He's a really good distributor of football. He manages to slash really well. But I'll say the same thing. Like, I like the underdog role. I think this team relishes in it. It was I was kind of nervous against Oakland again as a favorite. It's like, how do we do it this time?
Well, I was going to
But I
say,
like this.
yeah, could you sense that the fans there were the neutral fans were pulling for Oakland? Because I got a sense State's the underdog role, and usually when those kind of games, at least Texas Tech, they got that neutral fan support. Could you feel that against them?
In the second half, yes. Because it was like NC State kind of controlled the game, and it wasn't pretty, and they had a couple misses underneath, but they were, leading. And then in the second half, you could notice that the locals and the people that had showed up from Pittsburgh just looking for a good game did start to gravitate towards Oakland. I mean, it was pretty obvious. I mean, Golke was such a big, phenom in the first game against Kentucky with all his threes, and then he was lighting it up and kind of had him nervous again. But yeah, definitely. I don't love if there's anything I would love to see, and it'll never happen because it's already done this way. But I love how the women's tournament has the top seeds get that first round matchup, kind of like they do in college baseball. There's something about a neutral site I don't love. It's fun and I get it, but like even in the one bracket where they sent Auburn and UAB out to Spokane, Washington, like that doesn't make any sense. I think it would have been more fun, and I like the way the women's game does it. It'll never change, like I said, but it was it's a weird dynamic, like to see that, like, who is these kind of randos that are just there to see a basketball game? Who do they end up cheering for? It's nothing like a home court advantage in college hoops, wherever the team is playing. And I think it would be better, but again, it's not changing.
Before we continue, I want to take a quick second to tell you about our sponsor, Flightland's Jessup Insurance Group, that has your whole world covered, with agents in 5 offices throughout Eastern North Carolina to help you decide how much coverage you need. Offering policies for home and auto, recreational vehicles, commercial, crop, health, life, and employee benefits. They are able to combine options to find a comprehensive solution that works for you. Flightland's Jessup protects the things you love so you can spend less time worrying and more time enjoying them. Find them on Facebook and Instagram at Flightlands Jessup. You can also visit their webpage at www.flightlandsjessup.com. So please make sure to go and check them out. Well, but I mean, let me ask you this though. I mean, because I think that one of the beautiful things though about the NCAA tournament is those those Cinderella teams, the Cinderella teams. And so would you say that, if you had it set up that way where the first 2 rounds were, at Auburn, were at whatever, like would Yale be able to go into Auburn and beat Auburn as if it was neutral?
It's a really good point because I know, home court is such a big thing in college basketball, and we've seen so many, home upsets, but you don't see the home favorites lose very much, and it's one thing for Yale to do it on a neutral. I don't know if they're doing that, at Auburn. So that's a good point. So maybe it's design. Maybe that's the beauty of it, is that you do get these flaws, the upsets, because I mean that's what everybody loves. I do feel this though, and I felt this day because they had me on CBS Sports HQ give a little breakdown, kind of what I was looking for in the Oakland game, and I had a prediction from that one that the winner of that game would be the clear-cut, like, America's team, because I do think there's a lot of people that are casual. I would even consider myself a fairly casual basketball fan where they start tuning in January, right? But a lot of people just start tuning in March, and I do think it's because of Big DJ. He's such a lovable teddy bear, and I think people gravitate toward him because he plays with a ton of emotion. You don't see fellas that are that big, have as much success. He plays with this emotion. He was on, the Barstool guys, pardon my take. I was listening to some of that earlier today. Like I think NC State is a team that during this Sweet 16 weekend that people are going to start to gravitate towards. And if they're, if just a casual's looking for that underdog story, it's this team.
Well, because let me ask you too, because I mean it's kind of a twofold thing. But I mean, on one side, from a team perspective, that NC State is the only team that is a 7th seed or lower in the NCAA tournament left over right now. So it's great because there's only one Cinderella team right now, and that's us.
Right.
But then the other side, I think about DJ Burns, and like it's crazy how much his name has blown up in the last week or so. Like I still remember, Danny, I don't know if necessarily how in tune you were, but with who was it? The pickle commercial that RJ Davis and
that was a
and
local
DJ
commercial
Burns
thing.
did.
Yeah, it's RJ Davis, DJ
thing.
Burns. Yeah,
and fans
Mount
were
Olive.
saying like
Mount Olive,
Mount Olive, and fans were saying like why is RJ Davis doing this with DJ Burns? Like you got RJ Davis, an AC Player of the Year, and DJ Burns. Like they don't like. DJ Burns doesn't belong to be there. And now I'm saying,
Right.
are we sure it's not the other way around?
Yes.
Are we
Yes.
sure it's not the other way around?
Exactly. That's a great point. I love that because his and the other thing, and just, you know, I was aware of DJ Burns from last year's ACC tournament when him and Ben were having some battles. You know, Clemson was playing NC State and Ben was up there trying to body him up, and I'm like, who is this guy? Like, how the heck is anybody supposed to defend him? I think too, you know, talking about the Marquette matchup, I do think officiating becomes crucial because I'm sure you guys were all over it too. Yeah. When you're watching in person, you do see how teams defend him, and we'll see what Marquette does. But Oakland clearly was not only their plan was to double them and triple them. I mean, they swarmed like a swarm of bees, and Burns is such a good passer. He's able to kick it around so well. But the other thing is that, like, he was getting banged on and the officials were letting it go. And that, I think, is a crucial element to, you know, to see if this run can continue, is how the officials decide at the beginning of the game, because they kind of do set a tone. If they let it play out, you know, on both ends. I think that was the thing that was kind of annoying, is it felt one-sided in Oakland. Yeah. But, like, I do think letting them play benefits NC State if they let them do it on the offensive side of the ball, because clearly teams' only hope of stopping the big fella is to get up there and really try to, you know, body him. But good luck trying to do that.
Right. And I think about you just made a point there. So you said how you obviously Uncle Danny to Ben, but you also said you've been more of a casual fan. Since you've watched NC State this year, has like, how much attached to as a fan do you feel to State right now? I know you're a Florida State guy just from your years, but, you know, has it been something that you've enjoyed watching yourself? I'm curious to also, from your perspective, what it was like seeing them go through the ACC tournament coming out of the regular season.
It was awesome. So we do cover a lot of college basketball once the football season's over on my Sirius show. We're college sports radio, but clearly we're probably 80% football, 18% basketball, and then we do some baseball and softball in June, you know, like when it gets there. So, like, I have watched them a lot. And one of the things that I have been asking every basketball analyst that I've had on is what is the national perception of the ACC, and why is that? And then Brad Brownell came out, 6 weeks ago or so, and had those comments about how the Big 12 is taking advantage of it. And I'm thinking, thank you, which I think a lot of AC fans were saying thank you, because as NC State was playing, I'm watching them and I'm like, they look really good. And then you're starting to see them not even in the bubble conversation. They were just out of the tournament. And then I'm watching them go toe-to-toe with North Carolina and toe-to-toe with Duke at the end of the season. I'm like, these guys can play with them. They can play with anybody in the country. Right. And I do, like, that has been one thing that, as an NC State fan now, bandwagon fan with Ben, has also been really fun to watch. And I think it's proved a lot of those critics wrong who earlier in the season were saying, oh, the ACC should only have 2 teams in or 3 teams in, and the Mountain West is better. And all. I'm like, do we just forget that the ACC has been the best college basketball conference in history? Like, there's nobody else that's done it better, and we're just supposed to forget about that. And but I think the best part about this, getting a quarter of the field in the Sweet 16, is hopefully people remember this going forward, that the 20-game conference schedule really hurts the ACC because they start banging on each other. And I love that Kevin Keats brought it up and said, no, the 20-game schedule has us more prepared than anybody else in this tournament because we've been battle-tested and we've been through some of those tough teams. So I think NC State has really, like, it's been an incredible run for them. And I'm not a huge conference guy. Like, I've hated that. I don't like how the SEC, but you kind of have to. You have to kind of pull for the conference, which, again, I don't like. Yeah. I can't imagine an NC State fan like, yay, Duke, go win a title so we can prop. No one wants to do that. Same thing with Carolina. Like, I hate that, but you do kind of have to root for the conference's success so that perception can get back to where it was. But I hope the ACC, the analysts that cover the ACC, start to really promote the success they've had, not only in this tournament, but in the past 3 years, which, again, working in this, I've heard this narrative come from the last 3 years, I would say, that the ACC is, quote, down. And the only reason it's perceived as down is because they're not getting as many teams in the tournament when they're making a pretty good statement that maybe they should have had more teams in. And could you imagine how well they'd be doing then if they had got more teams in?
Right. That point too. I looked at this morning. I said, I think the ACC and I think the WAC. I think it's the WAC. I can't remember with whoever's got Gonzaga and I can't remember who the other teams are like that. But
St. Mary's.
Well, yeah, but there's some. I'm thinking the two in the Sweet 16. I just know like the Big Ten, the SEC. I think only have like 2 teams. I think Illinois, Purdue for the Big Ten, and then Alabama and can't remember who the other team is for the SEC. But it's not. It's not that. I know Joe Lenardi got on there and was like talking about how the ACC is so down. And
Tennessee.
you look on X now, I guess whatever it's called, and they're like everybody's blowing him up nationally. Like, hey, what about this now? And to me, I think about a team like Pitt, like.
Yeah,
they should have been in. I mean, that's a team. They're just as good as any other teams I'm seeing in the Sweet 16 right now. They just didn't get a chance. And I mean, honestly, this year I was kind of down personally on Clemson going into the postseason. I thought this year I was like, I don't know, but they got in and they're proving everybody like we're good. I mean, and they credit to Brad Brownell, the whole Clemson. They got Jack Clark now on their team for NC State. So, but Pitt to me, like. I know Virginia lost, but there's just stuff like that. It's a strong conference. It's so tough to play and win in. You made the point that I honestly don't think about how they went from 18 to 20 conference games. It's just not the same, and I don't see that. And I feel like this is a year where it's kind of shutting everybody up, and it should honestly.
So Danny, let me kind of ask that to you as kind of a question. So because one of the things that held Pitt back was their out of conference schedule. They were like 340th in the nation, something like that. The reason why Virginia got in was because back in November they beat, I think it was Texas A&M and like Florida or something like that. They had 2 really good wins 3 months ago. Right. But a lot of people say, well, NC State, like you don't play anybody out of conference either. But the immediate thought coming back to that, and you already basically mentioned it, is that the ACC schedule is so tough just because it's the ACC. There's a lot of really good teams in the ACC that beat up on each other. So if you were the athletic director for an AC team, would you rather have a really tough out of conference schedule to be like more like a UNC where it can improve their RPI or the net ranking, but on the bad side it can beat them up, it can maybe not have them so ready for AC play, or would you rather go really easy, like which way would you rather go in your opinion?
I think it depends on where you are as a program. Like if I'm accepting the Louisville job as a head coach, whatever direction they go, I'm going into my athletic director and saying, we need some easy wins. We need to turn. When I know we're a blue blood of college basketball and we're supposed to play against the best, but that's just not where we are right now. We need to make sure our record is better. So give us some easy dubs. Like help us turn this perception around, and we'll see. Maybe we can get into the tournament. We can sneak in there. But if you're a Duke or Carolina, then I want to play the best. And I think that and it's interesting because when I was at Florida State, before I was at Florida State, Bobby Bowden had, famously was like, we'll play anybody, anywhere. And that kind of ran through the whole career. Like we always had non-cons against Florida, against Notre Dame, against Miami. Before they were in the ACC, it was like, we'll play anybody, anywhere. And I do like that mentality, but I do think it depends on where your program is. Like if you're a little bit down, I think, but it's hard because some of these games are scheduled out pretty far in advance. But I've always been, you want to play against the best, but you've got to realize that there is some rigging going on that, conferences, and the Big 12 specifically, and to their credit, they've taken advantage of it because they've done well, and they've had multiple national champions with Baylor and Kansas. So, like, they've been able to take advantage of it, but it definitely helps, and narrative helps in recruiting. Like when you start, because I guarantee you the ACC is being recruited against by the SEC and Big 12, and they're saying, you guys hear it all the time, the ACC is down. You guys don't, are you sure you want to go there? The ACC is down, and the Big 12 is on the rise, and the SEC is, not only a football conference, they're using that against them. So there is some of the game that you have to play, which I hate it. Because a lot of it, I guess you consider political or, just I don't like how all college sports, especially the big ones, football and basketball, and even baseball somewhat, have gotten into where perception matters and, your marketing material is almost more important than what you've done in the field. And I do think that's an area where the ACC could improve on is being noisier about the success they've had collectively. Again, it goes everything against I stand for, because I don't think isn't like you don't want to bring up and brag about Duke and North Carolina's titles. You want to have your own, but it does kind of matter,
Yep.
you've got to like try to get back to where saying no. College basketball runs through the ACC, and that's got to be sort of a line that you've got to take.
Well, you talk about championships. It's at least just good to know that this year we can remind everybody NC State does have an ACC championship, so we can at least pitch that to everybody else. But
Exactly.
But no, I guess so. Just to kind of put a bow on the basketball side of things for this tournament. So if it's on the other side of the bracket, whoever's not NC State, who do you think poses the biggest threat to win the national title this year?
I'd say it's probably UConn. UConn looks so good, and they've been dominant in their first couple games. And the one thing I do think I noticed from Dan Hurley, their head coach, there's some like Nick Saban-esque qualities to him. I don't know if you guys were watching their first game that they had against Stetson. They were up like 35 at half, and he comes over to do the sideline hit, with the sideline reporter, and he's like pissed off. And he's like, we played like crap and all this. And I'm like, that sounds a lot like Nick Saban, and they have had zero drop off from the title. Do you know how hard that is not to get complacent with young college players who are now getting paid and have success and have distractions? That is so hard to do, and yet he's been able to do it. And then again, after their last win, he was mad about the Big East. So he's like finding something, and they blew out both opponents, and he's, calling out, the Big East or the committee. And he's like, and they've made it hard for us, even though his road wasn't that hard. Like when you look at it, Stetson Northwestern weren't exactly that impressive. And San Diego State's not that hard of a draw. And he's like, we got the worst draw, and they're trying to screw us. He's on he
knows what he's doing.
Absolutely. And it's very Nick Saban-esque on the football side. Like that kind of mind games that you have to play to just stay on and never have that letdown is something that reminds me of them. Plus, they're really good. They're uber talented. So they're a team that definitely is someone to watch out for.
Fair.
Well, and obviously the other thing to add to his Nick Saban-esque, feel about him is also too that the boosters behind him all say, so how much do you need? You need how many millions?
Exactly.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, no, and they'll give it to him.
Exactly.
All right, so we can't let you go, Danny, out of good conscience though, with your football background. I know we have to let you go here, but I got to get you to just say 30 seconds to a minute about 2024 NC State football. How are we feeling? Obviously, NC State fans, we are expecting through the roof, like ACC championship or bust. Like anything less than that, I'm not very happy. Would you say that that's a crazy take or no, put me on that train too.
No, I think NC State perennially is one of the most underranked, under-talked about, under-picked teams in the country. Dave Dorn has been one of the and I think there's a couple schools that fit this mold. Utah out west is a team that's always better, and people just forget about them because there's other teams with bigger brands and other recognizable names, and so they just kind of fly under the radar, and yet every season they're exactly where they need to be. The Grayson McCall pickup, I think, is huge. I'm very curious to see if he can get back to the numbers that he put up at Coastal Carolina. But it is oftentimes all about the quarterback. And I hate to make it too just one-sided, but it really is a quarterback-driven game. But he's proven to be a winner. He's proven to be highly efficient, and I think that's exactly what Dave Dorn's looking for in this offense. It'll be curious to see what they do to replace Peyton Wilson, because that dude was an absolute stud who, if he wasn't injured,
100%.
probably would be a lock first-round pick. But, again, it kind of goes to, like, teams you trust. I trust that NC State is going to be physical. I can trust that they're going to be physical, they're going to be well coached, and they're going to play really hard football. And in a year when Florida State is going to be replacing a ton, Miami still hasn't proven anything. You've got Clemson, who probably is going to be the media favorite to pick, but they've been vulnerable. NC State just beat them a year ago. It's like the shirt that I'm getting sent to me right now that says, "Why not us?" Why wouldn't it be NC State in football as well? And now that'll be harder for me, rooting for them if Florida State's in the mix. Yeah. But picking one, they should be right in the mix with why wouldn't they be a team that should be in contention in, November for the ACC championship. So I think I think you should have high expectations, and it should be one where, you could definitely picture a scenario where they get to the ACC championship game. And I think it's what's really interesting is the ACC going to get one or two teams in? You know, like, because that, like, and especially like that opportunity against Tennessee is massive. And that one will be one where, and again, I don't like doing it. I've been forced to do this. I will be rooting for NC State because they're in the ACC playing against the SEC team, but they could win that game. Like, why not? And then all of a sudden, that I think is the type of win that could really put them, on the national stage. And then with an opportunity in the first month of the season to go to Clemson, that could be huge for them. So I definitely like their prospects this upcoming season.
Well, right now, NC State's plus 1,400 to win the ACC, Danny, just for your...
I think it's really good value.
For your notes.
For real.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
So anyway, Danny, we'll let you go here, but just for our fans who want to be able to check out some more of your content, please let them know where to check you out, where to listen, watch your stuff.
X at Danny Kanell is my handle. Every morning, 6 a.m. to 9 a.m., Sirius XM, College Sports Radio, Channel 84. And then the Cover 3 podcast with my fellas from CBS Sports. We have that. You can find that anywhere podcasts are. We're always talking college football. And then one more pitch for you. So I was talking to a company, Breaking Tea. They've got a bunch of you. I'm sure you guys know them. So Ben's coming out with. He's got 2 shirts coming out. Benergy, one says, and I think the other one is Big Game Benny or Benny Ball Game. I forget what it is, but go check out Breaking Tea because they also have DJ Burns, DJ Horn. Like they got a bunch of the players on the team. They got some really cool gear, so make sure you go check it out.
Exclusive content right now, man. This is awesome.
I love it.
I'm going to be tweeting out the link here shortly because they just had it up and running. They had to get everything cleared with the NIL group to get Ben's shirts up, but they already had both DJs. So make sure you go check it out.
That's awesome.
Well, Dan, we appreciate your time, man. Thank you so much for coming on, man. And we'll hope we'll hope to see you in the national championship game. All right.
Exactly. Why not us? Let's keep it going.
Why not us? And then for us, Wolfpack Nation, if you haven't already, make sure again hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you don't miss out whenever we release any new NC State content. Make sure to hit that like button and also to make sure to give us a follow. Tuffy Talk now on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, y'all. But thank y'all so much for tuning in. We'll see y'all soon and go Pack.